Hi, this is David Stromayer. I'm the producer and director of the documentary you're about to see called Cinerama Adventure, which was an adventure for me as well as people that are probably going to be watching the film. This all started years ago when I got into the movie business out of film school. And I would go to a cocktail party or some friend's house or something. There'd be a bunch of people around. They're all movie types, you know. And someone would mention the word Cinerama. And I had seen Cinerama twice as a kid growing up. And in the 50s and early 60s, Cinerama, the word Cinerama was a household word. Cinerama really created the widescreen revolution of the 1950s. It was a very complicated process. It required 3 pieces of film that were not 4 perforations high like normal 35 millimeter film would be. It was 6 perforations high, so that it was a taller image as well as wider image. And then you add the curved screen to that for the immersive effect. The stereophonic sound, which is before they came up with the word stereophonic sound, was very involving. So not only you were surrounded by picture in a way, you were surrounded by the sound as well. So it was a totally immersive thing. It blew everybody's mind. It created the industry's, as I said, widescreen revolution that followed with everything after that, you know, CinemaScope, 70 millimeter, Todd AO, Technorama, eventually IMAX was sort of a stepchild of Cinerama in a way. Opening night in New York in 1952, September 30th, 1952, the first thing that hit the screen after a prologue, a black and white prologue, which you'll see, and this is Cinerama, and the roller coaster opens up. And people were running down the aisles to escape the screen. A couple of people even had a tendency to grab the arms, hold on to the seats because they felt the whole theater was moving with this roller coaster. There's a whole aerial sequence, and this is Cinerama, where they're flying over the whole country. And people were advised to take Dramamine in case they got seasick because of the constant movement. So that's how immersive it was. It was technologically a nightmare to run. They had special projectionists who were trained extra well to make sure nothing happened. I mean, 3 pieces of film and a separate soundtrack and, you know, 4 or 5 projectionists running around like crazy trying to keep it on the screen. It was always a problem in projection getting these 3 images to fit side by side. Sometimes they would get out of sync, and then, you know, then you'd start going cross-eyed as an audience because something's over here is off and that's over there, and it was it could get crazy. It didn't happen that often. They were pretty careful with it, but it was a technological nightmare in a way. Industry types would say something about Cinerama, and I'd say, yeah, I saw that as a kid, and it was just amazing and everything. Well, they would answer back, as well as historians like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, and various other celebrity directors and stuff would say, well, Cinerama, and film historians especially, would say, well, Cinerama just only lasted like 15 minutes and it was gone. It was a phase. It went away. It was like 3D in the early 50s that lasted, 2-3 years at tops, you know. Well, Cinerama lasted about 12, 13 years and played in big cities and got a lot of publicity and made a lot of money, even though it was a contraption to run the damn thing. So quite often I would say to myself, you know, somebody ought to do a documentary on that and cover what that was like. So I started talking to other people, and then they would say, oh, you should go interview Joe Blow. He lives in Minneapolis or something. And it was this chain reaction of going around the country interviewing like close to 70 people in this documentary. We didn't use them all, but it told the whole story from beginning, middle, and end, and how it died, and the whole thrill that people experienced by going to these special event theaters periodically. And so I figured, I'm going to get revenge on all these historians that thought it was, a fad and it went away, you know. And if you remember, you know, bell bottoms in the 70s, or the jeans that that was a fad. Cinerama was a phenomenon. All these people that made this whole thing come together, they were all pioneers. They were all found this as being a unique technology that was going to blow everybody's mind, which it did. Smilebox came about because of the documentaries. We're showing clips interspersed with interviews, as you'll see in the documentary. But just to show something in letterbox, how special is that? It's widescreen, but everybody's used to widescreen. But that isn't what Cinerama looked like. It was on a curved screen, always on a curved screen. The exceptions were later when How the West Was Won and Brothers Grimm were sent out to local movie theaters. They were in CinemaScope print, so they were on flat screens. But the original intent was curved screens. So we went to a place called Laser Pacific, and I had a cameraman friend of mine from the American Society of Cinematographers with me. And he said, what can we do to create this? I had a picture of a curved screen, historical picture, which showed the Smilebox. And I said, that's what we want, but it's got to be geometrically equal with that, what people would have seen, So we did that. It went into a 3D program. They bent it and twisted it certain ways and made it look like it's supposed to look. It was probably the documentary spawned all these restorations after that, because the documentary was so popular. People say, well, where can we see these movies again? And little by little, the company that owns these movies started putting money into the restorations. Although I worked pretty cheap, I'll have to let you know, because I had a vested interest in preserving this history to show all these historians that this was a bigger deal than they thought, And so that's how Smilebox came about. We had some people complaining, well, why isn't it in letterbox? I don't understand, but that's not what you saw if you were in 1956 and you went to see a Cinerama show. This is what you saw. That's what Smilebox does for you. It creates what you should have had. When I finished the documentary, we ran it at the opening night of the Telluride Film Festival in 2002, which was the 50th anniversary of Cinerama. It has taken me around the world to various film festivals for the last, 6 or 7 years, showing it periodically and speaking like I'm speaking now, talking about how unique a format it was. So I hope you enjoy the documentary. It's 97 minutes long, and I think it's going to keep everybody awake.